Today was pretty interesting. I spoke on stage with Thatch. What's his last name, PJ? Noonian? Thatch Noonian, Pace Morby, Brandon Turner, and Miss Texas. Says some pageant girl about how to grow an audience and monetize it because that's what my business is. I help very, very large businesses, minimum, uh, mainly YPO guys because that's just those are the people that I hang out with. And then I help them grow their audience and then convert them into customers. And so we had a panel on that today. It was the best feeling that I had was afterwards. George Gammon, one of the guys that I work with, he came up to me and he was super proud. And George is not a physical guy. He doesn't like physical contact. And he goes up and you see him, Josh, coming up to like give you like a dap up hug, which was like the best feeling in the world. That was way better than the panel, like the proudness on his face, because he was genuinely just super, super happy. And I wasn't nervous at all going into it, but right beforehand, I had a little bit of nerves when I was talking to George. He's like, "Are you nervous?" And I was like, "Yeah, I kind of am." And he said, "He's such a good teacher." He was explaining the mechanisms as to what is actually going on inside my body. And so he said, "Well, you have your adrenaline pumping." And so he said, "So what does that actually mean?" He said, "It means that." Sorry, guys. I'm realizing that this is about to die on me. And so he said your heart rate is really pounding, and so you need to calm your heart rate. So there's two ways that you could do it. He said you can either go to the back room and start doing some jumping jacks, because afterwards your heart rate will be able to slow down and you'll be able to, after you can catch your breath, or you can just take some deep breaths and try and manually slow your heart rate. And I was already sweating because I was nervous, and I'm a nervous sweater. And so I said, I'll just try the breathing. I said, I'd sweat too bad if I was doing the jumping jacks or some push-ups right now. And so I get on stage and I'm pretty nervous because they introduced me first and then all these other guys. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, fuck, what the hell am I going to say? And then, your hands start to fidget. And that was after I took down a quad shot of espresso because I thought for some reason that would help getting on stage. Because I was a little tired. I was like, what I need right now is a quadruple shot of espresso. And a double.
That's not what you want when you're going into a nervous situation.
No. And so I have a pen in my hand and I'm just like, ugh, I'm shaking. And then once we start talking, I'm thinking, wow, we're just having a conversation. Then I start to jam, and then I'm like, I want to talk. Uh, I was still nervous, but I was really focused, and I was thinking, honestly, exactly what George said. He said, well, when you're having a panel, you need to make sure every single person's involved. And so make sure every single person's involved in this and they're answering what they're specialized in and you're controlling it. And I did that pretty well. I'm actually, it didn't go as well as I thought it was going to. Like, I stumbled over my words once or twice, and I'm very particular with how cognizant I am with how I speak and how I'm always trying to improve my communication ability. But you always fall down to your level of preparation and not to where you think you're gonna go to. So I fell down to a much higher level than I was expecting. So I'm proud of that. Didn't hit what I was hoping for, but I have such high expectations. I will never hit that, which is okay with me. I'm expecting not to, even though I kind of think I will. Either way, it was fun. Definitely moving on up in the world. PJ, what did you think of it?
Man, I thought, well, that's one thing I noticed. He did do a really good job getting everyone involved. What would happen is they'd go on and talk, and Josh would respond to what they were saying. He'd show that he was listening to what they were saying by kind of repeating it back to them, giving some type of. Then he'd make some type of point, and then say, "Okay, so Andrea, this is what you're good at," or Brandon, this is what you're good at. And I remember one time it was even when you said it to Andrea, just the pacing of how it was like a quick pause after you made your point and then pointed over to her and said, "Hey, here you go." I was like, wow, that was fucking badass. It was Things were going so smooth, dude.
I honestly, I don't know. I'd have to watch it back. We did record it, so we'll post that. It's actually, it's all because I talked to George beforehand, and he just told me exactly what to do, pretty much. And then I just
How
took,
do you think that helped?
and then what I did is I listened to Ken's panel, and Ken had a panel with all like Kiyosaki and a few other guys.
Yeah.
And so he's a pro, and so I was just seeing. I just honestly just wrote down what were they doing. How did he keep everyone engaged? How did he strategically change the topic depending on who he was talking to? And then how did he get everyone involved? And then I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try and wing it and do that. But it went out. It's
I think it flowed really smoothly. Like some panels they're not structured at all. Like one person will be talking for quite a while, and then I'll go from one person and back to that same person.
yeah.
But this was just like everyone was kind of putting in their input. Out
Yeah.
of the 5 people, and how long was it? An hour.
45 minutes or
45
something.
minutes.
Yeah.
Everyone was pitching in.
Yeah. That was the key thing that George said. George said you can't let someone dominate the conversation. You have to control it. And I mean that was pretty cool. So I mean, I then heard Eric Sue's presentation, and it was the best presentation I've ever seen, objectively. Not from a perspective of how he's a great presenter, but for the information. He runs a really large marketing company, and I'm gonna start to work with Eric because he's a good friend of mine, and he's has some serious connections, and I know that I'll do a really good job for him. And then he's gonna help me with my business, and then I'm sure that he'll refer a lot of business for me. And I mean, I would refer his business to anyone. I don't know. I mean, he works with a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and really, I think I'm pretty sure pretty large businesses. And those are most of my friends that I have that I hang out with. So if he's looking for business, he's the type of guy I'd want to recommend to every single person. And I want to provide such extreme amounts of value to him. He'd want to do the same thing for me. Those are the kinds of relationships that I like. He's also just a really fun dude and cool guy to hang out with. But the way that he's integrating AI into his company, it's incredible. It's incredible. I love when things are going wildly over my head. All the macro stuff, whenever these guys are talking about real estate, I understand it because I've been around it for so long. So I love when someone's talking and I don't understand what they're saying, because then I'm like, fuck, I gotta understand this. And it's just how I'm wired. And Eric's talk was going way over my head, and his talk actually, if I can understand that, I can make a lot more money. This stuff that Eric was talking about actually makes you money. That's what I want to figure out. And the way that I run my business, I get to see inside of everyone else's businesses to see what they're doing, and I can take best practices and do it for mine. And I'm very honest with this with everyone, because I just want to learn, and I make that explicitly clear that my number one objective is learning, and I don't really care how much money I'm making, even though it's substantially more than what I'm used to. It's just exchanging value for value. As I get better, people are willing to pay more, but I'm still just trying to learn as much as possible. It's a win for everybody. That's every single person is exceptionally happy doing this type of exchange, especially when you're younger. You have a huge edge for this. So I've got to get to bed. I wanted to get to bed a long time ago. We got scandaled into having a bottle of wine at dinner. I don't even know how that happened. The waitress was like, "You guys look like you need a drink." I was like, "Fuck."
You take too much.
I was like, "Well, what do you think we should drink?" And then she was like, "Well, do you want some margaritas, some shots?" She was like, "I kind of like wine." She was like, "Well, do you want a glass of wine?" She's like, "I can get you a bottle of wine right now." I was like, "Fine, bring us a damn bottle of wine. I don't want it, but bring us a bottle of wine." And then we end up hanging out, going to a little bar afterwards. Speakeasy. I don't. People are so. We went to a little speakeasy afterwards. Ah, shit, my thing's glitching.